Welcome back. This week my lecture is in two parts. Part A, the PlayStation Syndrome, or the eternal quest for newer and better. And the second part of my lecture is Part B, electronic waste, also known as EWaste, or where computers go to die. Part A, the PlayStation Syndrome, the eternal quest for newer and better. What it is, how it drives an economy, and why it is harmful to our society. The consumer is the prime mover in starting what I will term the PlayStation Syndrome. I originally observed this phenomena watching my grandson as each new version of the PlayStation gaming system was introduced. The following diagram illustrates how this works. The consumer has a want, which, with the help of advertising, evolves into a need for a new version of an existing product, such as a newer, faster PlayStation, with games that have better graphics, faster response, etc. Or let's say a new iPhone with larger screen, a better camera, a faster, more intuitive operating system, a more friendly and capable Siri voice recognition system, etc. Here is an example of what economists term a market pull, in which there is an underlying pent-up demand to which, let's say, Sony must respond. The Sony engineers worked feverishly to design the system packaging, software, etc., so that it is available before Samsung or Microsoft can swoop in with their version of a product that satisfies this perceived need. So we went from the consumer now to the engineering part of it. The completed design goes to manufacturing, but before the final product can be made, raw materials must be purchased. These consist of plastics derived from petroleum, metals from ores extracted from the earth, silicone, which basically comes from sand, which is silicon dioxide, cardboard shipping boxes from trees, etc. These materials must be transported to the plant by ship, train, truck, etc., which consumes energy and emits pollutants in the transportation process. Energy is then used to produce the item, heat and light the plant, etc. The final products are then shipped in containers by boat and trains, and finally in diesel trucks to stores such as Best Buy. Lines form during the night at Best Buy to see who can be the first to own the latest PlayStation or iPhone. The store quickly runs out of its initial allocation, but this feeding frenzy of consumerism eventually abates when subsequent shipments arrive and demand is met. Oh, how happy the consumer is that he or she has one of the first iPhones or PlayStations. In the case of the PlayStation, the consumer must also buy many of the latest games, which feature ultra-realistic gore and mayhem. What happens to the outdated gaming system, you might ask? Well, that is relegated to the garage or attic, along with games, joystick controllers, and other paraphernalia. After all, why waste time on those games? They are so boring, and I've already beaten most of them anyway. Eventually, during a periodic home decluttering session, these relics of times past see one of three fates. Most are thrown to the curb with the trash to end up in landfills, where they spend all of eternity occupying precious landfill space. That's the first place. Or they are recycled back to stores like Best Buy, where they are likely to face an uncertain future, most likely where they'll be recycled in some form. Or three, they are donated to a charity where they are first purchased, but eventually disposed of by either methods 1 or method 2 above. I will discuss more of this in the second half of this lecture. Enough of this talk about garbage. Let's get back to my new gaming system. How challenging and sublime. Then after some time, something quite unexpected happens. Many of the games have been beaten with success at the highest levels, and almost coincidentally, a new Xbox system is released by Microsoft with even better graphics, faster processing speeds, perhaps 3D imaging, or even virtual reality, and even more blood and gore than the latest Sony PlayStation. Or perhaps a new Samsung Galaxy phone or tablet comes out where the back can be removed and an SD micro card and the phone battery changed, versus the latest iPhone where Siri, try as she may, cannot accommodate you on that one. Or perhaps the latest iPhone has a larger screen, better camera, faster operating system than your recently acquired Droid phone. You see where this is headed? It starts the cycle all over again, simply based on the desire to keep up with or stay ahead of your peers, as in my previous lecture, and being the coolest in the crowd because you have the latest phone, tablet, computer, entertainment system, gaming system, etc. This creates a never-ending cycle of consumption, or as we fossils used to call it during the Fortran computing years, the dreaded endless do loop. This cycle, encouraged by our advertising industry, is what drives our consumer-based economy, and it's what makes companies like Sony so phenomenally successful. It is the engine that powers the consumption of products ranging from carpets to computers to cars. Speaking of cars, they have gone from a means of basic transportation, one step removed from a horse and wagon, to autonomous computers on wheels that not only transport but also entertain along the way. This further complicates their disposal. So in a sense, this cycle, which I call the PlayStation syndrome, is good for our economy, but there are some drawbacks. More recently, thanks to the running of fiber optic cable globally during the dot-com boom and the subsequent globalization process, it has been good for economies of China, India, Vietnam, Mexico, and other emerging nations as well. These nations have an emerging middle class who want to be just like us. This further exacerbates the problem of overconsumption of consumer electronics and its subsequent disposal. The disadvantages of this consumerism cycle. We are rapidly depleting the finite natural resources of our planet. We have a limited number of resources which we can call upon to extract, and we're rapidly depleting those resources. While manufacturing goods, we are polluting our atmosphere, either by direct emissions during the manufacturing process or indirectly empowering our factories with electricity from fossil fuel power stations, or the emissions produced in the transportation of either raw materials or the finished products to the stores. When the manufacturing occurs in countries like China or India, who are not constrained by environmental concerns, the industrial wastes are frequently dumped into rivers or streams. When the outdated, though perfectly usable product is disposed of, we are filling our landfills to capacity with non-biodegradable items. Alternatively, as in the case of outdated electronics, we send the discarded products to third world nations, where they are burned to extract metals such as copper, etc. During this burning process, toxic gases are released, further polluting our atmosphere and putting the health of the local inhabitants at risk. This forms a perfect segue to the second part of my lecture. In other words, e-waste, or where computers go to die. Okay? E-waste burial site, quotation marks, number one is the curbside trash disposal. The simplest, most common form of consumer disposal of their e-waste is to put it at the curb or trash container for pickup and transportation to landfills by the local garbage contractor. Although this may seem like a sensible and benign form of disposal, several factors bear examination. We dispose of enormous amounts of electronic waste each year. In the year 2000, the U.S. disposed of 4.6 million tons of e-waste into our landfills. This number has been increasing at an astounding rate each year. There are 46.1 million tons of e-waste generated worldwide in 2014 alone, with the US and China generating about 1/3 of that amount. 1 billion cell phones were sold in 2007. I'm sure it's much more than that now. With an average life expectancy of 2 years, only 10% of the cell phones were recycled, and the rest ultimately thrown into the trash due to their compact size. Computers and other types of consumer electronics are considered by many municipalities to be hazardous waste and therefore not acceptable for pickup. This is particularly true of the cathode ray tubes in older type monitors and TVs, as they contain massive quantities of lead. In spite of municipal regulations, much of these banned materials nonetheless end up in our landfills. E-waste burial site number 2, electronic recyclers. Between 1997 and 2000, 500 million obsolete computers were shipped to developing nations for extraction of precious metals by burning. 500 million. There are 112,000 computers disposed of each day, or almost 41 million per year. There are 31,900,000 monitors, plus 400 million DVDs, VCRs, iPods, CDs, etc., discarded each year. These are incredible numbers. It is 10 times more profitable to export e-waste for processing than it is to recycle them domestically. 10 times more profitable to ship this e-waste to third world nations than to do it domestically. Okay, what is the result of burning this e-waste, which is done in these third world nations? Okay, the products of combustion released into the air. First, bromine, which is used as a flame retardant in plastics, creates dioxin, which when burned causes cancer. Mercury causes brain damage. Beryllium causes lung cancer. Chromium, damage to our DNA. Lead, which is again formed in CRT monitors, cathode ray tube monitors and TV, causes damage to the nervous system, blood systems, kidneys, and reproductive systems. Cobalt is radioactive. Barium is highly toxic, and arsenic, which might sound familiar, we know as a poison. Okay, now where are these so-called recycling sites located? Okay, they're mostly in third world countries. Agbogbloshie, tough to say, is the world's largest site located in Ghana, West Africa. The burn site, ironically enough, is directly across the street from the largest outdoor food market in West Africa. Pretty ironic. Gayu, China is another major site which is run by local gangs and sanctioned by the mayor of Gayu. More recently, there is a site on the outskirts of Hong Kong known as New Territories. There are other sites in developing nations such as Vietnam, Pakistan, and others as we displace the true costs of our consumerism into nations who do not have the power to resist. Workers at both sites make on average, between $5 to $8 per day, some making as little as $1. Okay, what are we doing to address this problem? Well, many of you know about Best Buy. It's the nation's most widely recognized program to cycle electronic waste, having recycled 1 billion pounds since 2009. Unfortunately, the rate of recycling is growing at 20% per year, forcing two major changes at Best Buy. The first one, which seems benign, but you'll see in a minute is not, they used to require recyclers to carry either, or actually both, eSteward and R2 certifications. They used to require them to carry both of those certifications, but now they only require one or the other. And again, you'll see in a minute why this is a problem. In the future, they may have to relax these standards even further as they are inundated with more e-waste than they can find certified recyclers to process it. They also now charge a $25 fee to recycle the larger e-waste, such as computers, thus reducing the consumer's incentive to do so. Okay, Dell Computer is the most advanced in this area. They have a trade-in program where you trade in a working computer and they buy it back essentially by giving you a gift certificate for a new computer or any of the Dell products. They also offer free shipping. I believe it's FedEx. They give you a free FedEx label to return either working or even non-working Dell computers. They must be Dell computers. And they also practice a closed cycle manufacturing, wherein they take the product they get back and rework it for new products. Maybe they melt the plastic down and reuse it, reformulate it into new computer cases, etc. Okay? The question arises, where are Amazon, Walmart, Costco, and Sam's in addressing this problem? I guess the profit is the utmost for those. Okay, so let's talk about a beginner's guide to e-waste recyclers. There are three types of e-waste recyclers. First of all, the non-certified type, and these are those who wish not to be certified, most likely so that people can't observe what they're doing with the recycled product. There are the eSteward, I mentioned that previously, certified recyclers. This is a group which was formed by the Basel Action Network, also known as BAN, and we're going to be talking about them in a minute, and industry leaders. They are held to the most rigorous standards regarding recycling. Then finally, the third type are R2 certified recyclers. Remember, Best Buy requires either eSteward or R2, not both. Okay, this group was created as a result of an EPA-convened multi-stakeholder process. There are 5 times as many R2 certified recyclers as eSteward recyclers. So therefore, if Best Buy requires one or the other, most likely most of their stuff is going to the R2, not the eSteward. Okay? Now, this brings me to why this could be a problem. That Basel Action Network, or BAN, just issued a report not long ago on scam recycling. The report was entitled Scam Recycling, E-Dumping on Asia by U.S. Recyclers. It was dated September 15th, 2016. The results of a study where 205 old printers and monitors were planted with GPS trackers and then delivered to charities or recyclers are as follows. These are the results of this study. So again, they put trackers into monitors or computers, then delivered to charities or recyclers. Okay? 40% of 152 deliveries to U.S. electronics recyclers went offshore, mostly to China. 96% of the exports are likely to be illegal under international or U.S. law. 93% of e-waste exports moved to developing countries, 93%. 4, many recyclers involved in the export made website claims of never exporting. Now here's the real zinger. The R2 certified recyclers exported at a greater than average rate, even greater than the uncertified recyclers. E-Steward recyclers exported at a less than average rate. Thus, the Best Buy change requiring either R2 certification or E-Steward certification, but not both, becomes very significant. Okay, the Basel Convention. What is Basel Convention? The Basel Convention is a treaty on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous waste and their disposals. It became law on May 5th, 1992. It is primarily used to stem the export of hazardous e-waste. As of November 2016, there are 185 parties to the treaty, which includes 182 UN member states, the Cook Islands, the European Union, and the State of Palestine. The only 11 UN member states that are not party to the treaty, have not signed it, are Angola, East Timor, Fiji, Grenada, Haiti, San Marco, the Solomon Islands, South Sudan, Tuvalu, Vanuatu, and the United States. We are thus the only developed nation to not have ratified this treaty. Okay, well, some closing thoughts. First of all, we should sign a petition to force the U.S. to join other developing nations in ratifying the Basel Convention Treaty. This is long overdue. Now, I have the site for the BAN network that I mentioned previously. It's a little bit further down on in this presentation. But if you go to that site, there is a petition to sign to help force the U.S. to sign this. We should buy products from electronics manufacturers such as Dell who practice responsible recycling and closed-loop manufacturing. We should support laws that require companies to reduce toxins in their products. We should support the efforts of the following organizations in their efforts to eliminate the exportation of e-waste. First is BAN Action Network, which is BAN, abbreviation, www.ban.org. The next is Silicon Valley Toxics Coalition, www.svtc.org. And also some more closing thoughts just to wrap things up. It's nice to have the latest smartphone, computer, or gaming system, but we must be aware that the true cost of our new purchase is not just the price we paid the retailer. The true costs are often displaced into third world nations who have no vote as to whether they want to pay these costs. We must think before we buy as to whether we need the new purchase or whether we are buying into some advertising agency's rhetoric that we have a true need for this product. We should seek out environmentally friendly means of disposing our outdated computers or phones, such as organizations who put cell phones into the hands of those who need them, such as Cell Phones for Soldiers. Okay, and I have the HTTP for that. Or victims of domestic violence. They give them cell phones through this program, and the link is there as well. Well, thank you very much for your time. I hope you found my lecture interesting, and I will talk to you again soon.